We're going to now jump to 13 on your sides, Callie Lichter and Riley Mack. They're joining us now in the courthouse. They've been watching this court proceedings all day long. Ladies, tell us, what have you seen so far?
Yeah, absolutely. We just saw from the judge kind of some turbulence in the courtroom today. Just before the lunch break, they had a potential expert whose appearance alone in the trial caused kind of contention in the courtroom. We saw Seth Stoughton, who is a professor of law and criminal justice at the University of South Carolina. He's also a police officer and a lawyer. He's studied police tactics for years and written multiple books. The defense immediately argued that he should not be included as an expert witness in the case. The motions to deny him immediately, though, were not approved. They were going to hear him out and see if he should be an expert in the case. The prosecution jumped in to prove that he could be an expert. Stoughton said he's testified as a use of force expert around 22 times across the country. He says he has never been denied as an expert in the courtroom. Matt Borgula, who represents Christopher Schurr, cross-examines him. He brought up his report that he submitted to the court. He said Stoughton made opinions on Schurr pursuing Lyoya on foot and trying to use his taser. He said that's fine. You can make opinions on that and you can justify those actions. He has issues, though, with him making opinions on what he called the ultimate question, which is whether Schurr was justified in shooting Lyoya. Stoughton says he made no opinions. He would simply be making statements in the trial on Schurr's actions that April morning based on his knowledge of police tactics. Borgula asked him if he knows about any specific Michigan statutes on police use of force and how they would play into the case. And Stoughton says, I don't know. I don't claim to be an expert on Michigan law, but he reiterates that he would only comment on Schurr's actions in that video, not what should be done about them, not how he should be punished. Borgula argued that Stoughton's testimony would confuse the jury with opinions and even called it dangerous. He said this to the judge in arguing that he should not be included as an expert on the case. The prosecutor then read from a court manual why he should be accepted as an expert based on his experience, based on his reliability in testifying. The judge, though, is the one that makes that final call, and right before lunch, she said she brought up the officer-created jeopardy term, which you may have heard on that live stream. It was a term that Stoughton said was made in the 90s by someone else, not Stoughton, and is generally widely used in police training. She said that the validity of his skill and education were never in question for her. She was just concerned about his reliability in his testimony. She felt in the end it was reliable because this officer-created jeopardy term is a term that's widely used, and not just by Stoughton. She ruled that he ultimately can be an expert in the case, that his testimony could help the jury understand that evidence. But Callie, it just kind of goes to show that this was the first time that there was true turbulence in that courtroom contention between the two attorneys.
I think there's been turbulence a couple times during this trial. I mean, what we've been seeing and what I've been reiterating this whole entire time is that you have two clear, very distinct views on how this is going to go. I mean, we even saw it earlier with Brian Childs, and just over the taser, and you had some he was examined by County Prosecutor Chris Becker, and then cross-examined by the defense, and then he was it was just like this back and forth and back and forth. And so I think this was just a culmination of actually almost weeks of back and forth over this one witness. But it's going to be very, very interesting to see how he is then cross-examined by the defense when we come back from lunch and ultimately hear his testimony.
Absolutely. And earlier today, we also had one of the longer, cross-examinations of a person on the stand, an expert. Mm-hmm. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so I know, we talked earlier when I was on about the use of the taser and kind of the two framings of this, and like I alluded to in my last answer, we're definitely getting to the point, what I call kind of the crux of this trial, is the two opinions, the two views of the two sides. And like every trial, there's going to be differences and things like that, but this here especially, I mean, this isn't, a misdemeanor case. This is felony homicide. It's a very heavy case, a very heavy thing that the prosecution is trying to prove here. And it just goes to show, the fact that this expert was questioned on, how to be an expert, or, his experience as an expert for over an hour. We were talking, like we said, 2 hours is the longest that an expert has been examined and cross-examined in this trial so far. And so, Lauren, sending it back to you in the studio, it's going to be really interesting to see how long this next expert is going to be examined and cross-examined.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about just the weight that these two experts have, ladies. We have seen that the taser has been a main focus for this case. Now we have a police expert, and we're expecting more police and taser experts. Talk about the weight of having experts on these specific topics.
So, when it comes to trials, and like I said, this isn't, a low-level felony crime or a misdemeanor. We're talking about like felony second-degree murder. That is a very, very, very heavy charge. And it's one thing to hear from people who were on scene. Like yesterday, we heard from two of Lyoya's friends. And those are more of your story witnesses, your character witnesses. But when it comes to the experts, these are people who have been doing their jobs for at least, a sizable amount of time. They know what they're talking about. They have degrees in these sort of things. These are the people who really know what they're doing. And if you've been paying attention during this trial, for the people back at home, you can notice for the first couple minutes, in this case, an hour, when a witness takes the stand, they're being asked about their qualifications. Where did they go to school? How long have they been in their position? What do they do in their position? Things along that lines. And that's just to prove that they know what they're talking about, they're knowledgeable. And it's really, really important to both sides that they call in experts who know what they're saying. So it's not like you're just taking someone's word for it. These are, again, like I've been saying, these are people who have been practicing this, who have gone to school for this, who have been doing this for a very, very long time.
Ladies, we spoke with an expert earlier today who talked about he felt like the steam was going to pick up today. Yesterday, we only heard from a couple of people, not too many experts, but today we're hearing from experts. Do you feel like the steam in the courtroom is starting to amp up in terms of both sides trying to make their arguments?
Absolutely. Just today, yesterday we had 8 witnesses, and it felt very quick. Callie and I were speaking about just how much longer today feels with just the 2 hours of questioning. I was surprised by, half an hour going over the cross-examination of the expert, like asking their educational background, their skills, their experiences, where they've testified before, how many times they've been an expert, and even questioning like the people that they've worked with on their books that they've written and things like that. These little details are certainly coming into question in the courtroom. Like Callie said, this is, I think everybody knows the high profile nature of this case and is taking it very seriously with that cross-examination.
And one thing, I was able to speak with an expert yesterday who's been helping us throughout this trial, and I simply asked her, I'm like, is it like the TV shows and the movies where there's one, bam, witness who kind of solidifies the case? And she goes, those are in movies, those are in TV shows. She said that the prosecution, because this is their witness list, the defense has a whole nother set of witnesses that we still have to hear from. When it comes to the prosecution's witness list, they're really calling them in chronological order of this case. We started off with the friend whose house he spent the night at, friend in the car, the neighbors who went out, the first neighbor on scene, second neighbor on scene, and then we started hearing from experts, the analysis, and we're getting into the kind of this post-analysis here when it comes to the taser and when it's going to come to, the police expert and other witnesses that, we're bound to hear in this case. So yesterday, yes, we got through those 8 witnesses, boom, bam, done. But now it's going to get into the analysis of it, which I think is at the most contention of this case. Those witnesses who were on scene, the friends, the neighbors, that's what they saw. And yes, they were questioned about what they saw, but these are experts who are going to get a little more pushback because, again, they are experts in the field. They know what they're saying, and they can push them a little bit more because, it's a more in-depth issue and topic that they're talking about.
And that's one thing I wanted to actually bring up to both of you, is that we have seen the prosecution defense really kind of hit hard on those really specific details, and we just saw Stoughton push back on some questions, especially with the defense saying, I'm not sure what you're asking, or can you be more specific? Talk about seeing the process of both the defense and the prosecution really trying to get down to the specific details on what they're questioning these experts.
Absolutely. It definitely feels at some points it's kind of difficult to watch. It's a lot of the same questions being asked over and over, maybe phrasing it differently. It almost feels like we're like probing, we're prodding at the person to get to the heart of what they're trying to say. A lot of times yesterday it was hard to watch. These are people who, lost someone, and there was a lot of questions at them in cross-examination of their testimonies. And today we're definitely getting into that nitty-gritty of, even just, like I said, their experience is coming into question. So yeah, definitely a lot of similar questions being asked, and then the cross-examination, and it kind of happens all over again. But we've broken down a system of highlighting the most important details, and we've got all that on our website, 13onyourside.com. We've got a main bar story where we're just giving you the highlights, so you don't have to listen to 45 minutes of cross-examination to find the important details of what was just being asked. You can find that on the main bar of our website. That's our live article.
And when it comes to these questions, like Riley said, they are similar. Mm-hmm. They're going to be asking similar questions, but it kind of goes to the point, like, even though this is the prosecution's witness list, these are people that they are calling in that they believe will help build their case. They're not going to be 100%. Obviously, when you take the stand, you have to be 100% truthful and honest. That's the oath you're taking, or else you can be charged actually with perjury, which is a crime. And so these people have to be 100% truthful in what they're saying. So they're not going to, say 100% the things that the prosecutor probably wants them to say or wants to hear. So that's why you ask a lot of questions over. There's been some times that Becker has asked a question in one way that the defense has asked another way, and they've gotten, a little bit more deeper into the answer that's kind of like probed it and could possibly help their side. And again, both sides are going to keep on questioning these witnesses until they hear something that, hopefully for them benefits their case. And that's why we're seeing today, this 2-hour examination, cross-examination, and now 1 hour of just trying to, see if this witness should be considered an expert and even allowed in the trial in the first place. It's just to get to that main point at the end of the day that, these people are hopefully going to help either side of the case. And even though these people are not defense witnesses, the defense is going to try to get them to, again, help their case.
I think we saw a lot of that too this morning with the taser. Mm-hmm. The person from Axon Technologies was, speaking first to Kent County Prosecutor Chris Becker, and he was asking a lot of questions that kind of gave the response that a taser is not so much a fatal, dangerous weapon. And then the cross-examination happened where, a little bit different questions are asked, and we learned, a taser can be fatal. And it really depends on the questions that are being asked. You can see it just in that one testimony today, in that 2 hours, how much changed depending on the questions that are asked, and how much the case could change too.
Well, Riley and Callie, we appreciate your reporting. We think that proceedings for you all will start very soon, so we're going to let you go. Thank you so much for helping us out, ladies.